So to start us off, we see the overall layout of the army, and the kind of confusing thing is that they're all arrayed out in front of the castle. Now, depending on numbers, this might have been necessitated that there might not have been enough room in Winterfell to fit this huge army, but if there is any square foot of room where someone could have been standing within Winterfell and on its walls with a bow and arrow, there should be someone there. That castle should be loaded to the brim with defenders. Castle is a force multiplier. It helps protect you, it helps enable you to repel attackers. It's your main defensive and really offensive battlefield weapon in this sense, and it should be used to the highest amount possible. And as I mentioned in my previous video, fighting defensively is a very good idea, and one way you fight defensively is again putting your army behind the castle, and if you have enough men to not be overwhelmed by this army of the dead, you're actually in a fairly good position to rebuff them, especially with these dragons. And even if they are outnumbered, if it's not like 10 to 1, if it's only like outnumbered by, say, double, say the army of the dead has twice as many, troops as the defending force, if you use the right tactics and employ this castle properly, our heroes are actually in a fairly good position to come out much better from this war, this battle, than what actually happens. There is way too much open space within Winterfell. There is so many places where you could have put more archers, and they had the manpower for this. So many soldiers arrayed in front of the castle could have been fit in the castle on those walls. Like, there's room, there's space on the walls, we can see it. Because this is the thing, right? Castle walls are not only advantageous to shoot arrows from, they are also really good to use melee weapons from as well. What do you mean? What do you mean melee weapons? The enemy has to breach those walls somehow. How do you think they did it historically? With ladders and siege towers and stuff? And fighting from a ladder or a siege tower is really difficult. And if you're standing behind crenellations on a solid rampart, you have more stable footing and are in such a better position to use a sword and knock down anyone who's trying to get atop those walls. So it isn't only archers that are useful from castle walls, it's also soldiers with weapons to chop up and knock aside anyone who's trying to get up over these walls. There should be more soldiers on them. Fail. Okay. Sorry, I just need to take a moment to compose myself here because things seem to be just getting dumber and dumber. We've just been shown that there is a huge line of stakes and pikes in this ditch, and there's a decent gap between those stakes and the castle walls. And by the way, there should be a moat right adjacent to the outside of these castle walls. The fact that no moat is just ridiculous. But anyway, there's a decent gap between these stakes and the castle walls. If they were going to position their troops in front of the castle, why didn't they put these stakes in front of their troops? I mean, White Walkers are clearly going to lose a good number of their own men trying to get through these stakes, alright? And then they would have engaged the troops. So why wouldn't you have wanted to have forced your enemy to lose troops before engaging your own? That would have weakened their force, slowed down their aggressive, insane berserker charge, and you could have engaged them from a much stronger position from behind these stakes, yet you put your own troops in front of them? Oh, the dumb, the stupid, it's hurting.
I'm talking about the 5th and penultimate episode of the 6-week train wreck that is Game of Thrones Season 8, and what a treat it was. The Bells is the crowning indignity in a season that's gradually destroyed everything this show used to be, and replaced it with dumb, gratuitous battle scenes, idiotic dialogue, and insane character decisions that genuinely made me question whether this season's been written by an entirely new creative team. So the day of the attack comes, everyone forms up their armies, and it's time for a good old dust-off. King's Landing's heavily defended and fortified, but for some reason Cersei deploys half her army outside the walls to meet Dany's army in open combat. What the fuck? What's the point in having walls and fortifications if you're not going to use them to protect your troops? Not only are you leaving them unprotected and unsupported, but you've also made it impossible for them to retreat if they're under pressure. They pulled this exact same bullshit at the Battle of Winterfell, and it was just as ridiculous there. Has no one in this show ever bothered to learn about military tactics? Jesus, a couple of hours on Total War would have been enough. Nah, whatever.